Welcome to the CrossFit Games Update Show. I'm Pat Sherwood, joined at the desk by Caity Matter Henniger and Miranda Oldroyd. And guess what? The 2012 Reebok CrossFit Games have begun.
Day one at 5 a.m. this morning, all the individual competitors boarded the bus to Camp Pendleton. It was cold and foggy this morning, but they were welcome to day one of the CrossFit Games with crashing waves.
Yeah, it was foggy, but the sun did come out before they started. And looking into those waves, their stomachs must have been absolutely churning. They had a huge day ahead of them, something that they weren't even expecting till several days ago, I guess 36 hours ago maybe. A 700-meter ocean swim, an 8K single-speed mountain bike ride over mixed terrain and some unrideable soft sand, and an 11.3K trail run over, of course, named Microwave Mountain.
Sounds easy.
With a 1,400-foot elevation gain. And then, just an hour after that, they had to go head-to-head on the Marine School of Infantry obstacle course.
Now, as you guys probably noticed, Rory is not here. He was out on location today at Camp Pendleton, mingling with the athletes. He reported back, everybody was in good spirits, motivated to kick things off. Day one of competition underway. Caity, set the scene for us.
Great morning. All the competitors sprinted down to the water in one large pack. That was men's and women's competitors. And as all the others were carefully putting on their fins, Numi Katrin-Narsen ran into the water, quickly took the lead. He's a 7-year Icelandic national team swimmer, and at one point had a 40-meter lead over the rest of the pack. He emerged from the water in the first 13 minutes and 30 seconds. Remarkably, Chad McKay, just a guy who likes to surf, followed just 22 seconds behind the national level swimmer in second, and former water polo player Matt Chan just 10 seconds later.
Yeah, and a couple of those names we mentioned yesterday to keep your eye on, and they're panning out exactly how we thought it would. It must have been crazy in the water. Remember, like she said, both men and women starting together. That's nearly 100 people kicking, splashing, jockeying for position as they fought through the surf zone. Now, I did hear, because of the increased length of the swim versus last year, that there was a little more space to spread out, but still, it was crowded out there.
Definitely, and of course there were varying degrees of competency in the water, and you could definitely see it. Some competitors made it look easy, like they always managed to do. One of those ladies was Santa Cruz native and ex-water polo player Annie Sakamoto. She was the first woman out of the water in 1556, and of course, as usual, she came out with a big smile on her face.
Classic Annie.
Yes, Julie Fouché came out of the water second, and she was 14 seconds ahead of New Zealander Ruth Anderson-Horrell, who came out in third.
Now, some of those names might kind of ring a bell, right? It's like we're taking a trip down memory lane from last year's beach event. Both Fouché and Sakamoto excelled under similar conditions in 2011, and they were off to a fast start today. However, not everybody had a great morning.
No, definitely not. The ocean actually washed away one competitor's CrossFit Games dreams pretty much before they started. Orlando Trejo, the Latin American regional champion, didn't even really get to start the swim. Based on the rules, he has been disqualified from the competition.
Yeah, and we talked about it last night on this show. Trejo just learned how to swim. So, these waves that were out there, even the most experienced swimmer could have some issues with that. So, we have to hand it to Trejo. He braved the waves. He gave Latin America all they could ever ask for, and that's his best.
Orlando, we're pulling for you, brother. We have no doubt we'll see you here again next year. But what happens, the games ruthlessly reveal and punish any chinks in the armor that the competitors have. Yet there is hope. Last year, like Trejo, novice swimmer Deb Cordner-Carson, at the games, her dreams got washed away in the ocean. She stood at the edge of the breaking waves, too scared to get through. We heard reports that she had doubts again this year with Pendleton's longer swim. The rougher, less protected beach was kind of in her head, but happy to report she conquered her fears this morning, broke through the waves. And although she was the last out of the water, it does not matter. She made it. The water is no longer stopping her. So Deb, congratulations. We knew you could do it.
And it just goes to show what a year of training can actually do for her to do a swim that's over triple the length.
For sure.
That she wasn't able to do last year. Also excited for her. Deborah Cordner-Carson has conquered so much, from lymphedema to now conquering her fear of the water.
Yeah, just a great rally from one year to another. We had another rallying point today. Brian Diaz actually grabbed onto a jet ski midway through the swim. They took him back off the swim course. He collected himself on land, decided to re-enter the water, finished the entire swim unassisted, got to his bike as the rest of the pack had already been long gone, and finished.
That is incredible that he was like, no, take me back out. I
That's some
gotta
heart.
do this. Yeah. Once the competitors were out of the water, though, the clock kept ticking, and that transition time is crucial. Anyone who has done a multi-event race like this knows you've got to keep that pace up on the transition, or you could lose spots. There was one man, though, who seemed utterly unconcerned with how long the transition was taking. Canadian Lucas Parker, I'm not joking about this, the Teen Wolf, as they call him, showed off his pelt. Yes, he did, as he stripped down to his birthday suit, completely naked, between the ocean swim and the bike, and was toweling off, just taking his time.
What can we say?
That.
The CrossFit Games are going to put on one hell of a show, whether it's through athleticism or who knows what. Now, I can see taking your time, right? Wash your feet, in the buckets, get the sand out, but stripping down entirely, no better person than Ben Hollingshouse to catch up with Lucas and kind of get some insight into the strategy. Let's see what he had to say.
Lucas Parker recently finished the first and second event here at Camp Pendleton. I wasn't there to witness it, but I understand when you came out of the water, you decided to go au naturel for a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was sort of against protocol or whatever, but I didn't want to have the salty water swimsuit on me for the next 2 hours in the sun, kind of baking my nether regions.
You don't want sand in your nook and crannies.
Well, not so much, sand, and salt water, seaweed, what have you. So I stripped off, put some fresh underwear on, put my long tights on, and moseyed forward.
I don't know what to say about the two of them on a video together. I mean, just unbelievable. There's another way to lose transition time, and probably something that no one had thought about. What happens if your bike gets stolen? 2011 third place finisher Ben Smith lost precious seconds looking for his stolen bike. And we don't usually see a lot of emotion out of Ben Smith, but I heard that he was pretty fired up about not being able to find his bike. Fortunately, CrossFit kept some spare bikes around, and soon Smith was able to take off on the course.
Now, stolen, I mean, that's so harsh. Misplaced, maybe. I know we're in the LA area and things have a tendency to grow legs and walk off, but we'll see. Now, we have to remember that this bike ride is not just your casual Saturday bike ride through the park. These athletes faced an 8K bike over difficult terrain armed only with a single speed bike. What about that?
Yeah, definitely not a ride in the park. It's in some sections, it's actually just a trudge through, just one foot in front of the other, and they actually had to get off their bikes and either push or carry for a full 400 meters.
400 meters is a long way to carry a bike, it sounds
Yeah.
like. There were a few epic crashes, too, of course, where the road ended abruptly, and then there was this big pit of sand, basically. There were some athletes who thought they could come in hot, basically, and make up some ground, and got a little lesson in momentum. I guess they were thrown forward off their bikes like being bucked off of a bowl or something like that. It was pretty insane.
I can only hope that we have footage of that. That would be fantastic. The highlight, the blooper reel.
Of course.
Yeah, but after that, after all the crashes, after actually getting through the sand, the bike, the competitors actually faced their second transition of the day. That's from the bike to the hill sprint. Remember, the competitors had to get off their bikes, run through a steep 150-foot section before the clock actually stopped for Pendleton 1.
Yeah, and there were some tight races on that hill sprint, definitely to finish Pendleton 1. After Katrin Arson and McKay had taken first and second, Matt Chan passed the man who was third off of his bike, Daniel Hershey, to take over that spot on the way up the hill.
Now, that takeover over the hill is an important part. Let's talk about the scoring system. There are 100 points up for grabs on Pendleton 1. Now, that's about 150 meters of a run uphill after the bike section ends. So if you're neck and neck with someone as the bike portion ends and they hop off the bike, let's say 2 seconds before you do, but you pass them on the uphill to Pendleton 1 in that 150 meter stretch, well, guess what? You just earn more points. It was a very smart burst of energy by Chan, earned him some money in the bank. Katie, what happened to the ladies?
Very similar on the ladies' end. Annie Sakamoto was the first out of the water, but lost ground on the bike to Horrell and Fouché, who have much more experience on the bike. Horrell did hold on to first, but on the hill, Sakamoto closed in on Fouché. Fouché took second, but was just 2 seconds ahead of Sakamoto, who took third.
Unbelievable, 2 seconds after all that time.
On such a long race, nothing like a sprint to the finish, or should I say to the start. Several flags will fly at the top of the leaderboard for Pendleton 1. What do we have? Iceland, Australia, Japan, South Africa, Finland, and the good old US of A. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk about what happened in the brutal 11K trail run. Stay with us.
GNC is proud to be the official vitamin and sports nutrition retailer of the CrossFit Games. GNC, live well.
Welcome back. We are not done yet. The longest event in CrossFit Games history ranked the athletes and doled out points at two different stages. First, at a midway point, Pendleton 1 ranked the athletes after the swim, bike, and the first 150 meters of the trail run. Second, at the finish line, known as Pendleton 2. We left off at the end of Pendleton 1. After the athletes climbed the first 150 meters of the hill, they faced another 11 kilometers over Microwave Mountain, and they knew another 100 points were at the finish line. The finish order speaks to the international nature of our sport. We had an Icelander and an Aussie dominate day one.
Yeah, during the 11K, Noomi Katrin-Narson and Chad McKay flip-flopped from the bike swim in Pendleton 1 in the top two positions, and McKay overtook Noomi about 45 minutes into the run. That is a long time into the run.
It's too long. It's too long.
Too long for me, at least. At the finish, he was exhausted, but held on to win in 1 hour and 57 minutes. 2 minutes later, Katrin-Narson crossed the line to take second. Pretty scary, though. He seemed confused, not really in good shape, and they ultimately had to take him to the hospital. It was a tight race between the rest of the top men. A couple minutes after Katrin-Narson crossed, Kaspenbauer, Panchek, Smith, Daniels, and CrossFit Games veteran Patrick Burke crossed the line within seconds of each other.
Burke, former Marine, on his home turf. He thought he was going to have a good day. As you mentioned, Burke, Daniels, and Smith made up a huge amount of ground on the 11K run. They had finished high on the first part, teens and 20s on Pendleton 1, but made it into the top 10 on Pendleton 2.
Yeah, now, one of the men that they passed, and I don't even like talking about this because you guys know I'm a huge fan. One of the men that they passed was Chris Spieler, favorite for today. After taking 9th on Pendleton 1, Spieler seemed to be gaining speed, which we knew that he would do. Right, this is his type of event, and he actually did that. He was the third man to the summit, but on the way back down, that first really steep downhill, he slowed due to severe cramping in his quads. There were still 3.5, maybe 4 miles to go. There were points during the run that Spiel had to actually stop and stretch and was said to be screaming in pain.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, he doesn't typically do that. We don't hear that about Spiel. Of course, Spiel refused to quit. But by the time he crossed the finish line at 2 hours and 41 minutes, he was in 44th out of 45 competitors.
Yeah, and if you've ever had muscle cramps, especially cramps in your quads, it is just extremely painful. And I am just amazed that he was able to complete that with that. But the day didn't even really start out well for Chris Spieler. As soon as he hit the first wave, he lost his wedding ring. And then shortly after that, he lost his goggles. So from the beginning to the middle to the end, just wasn't the best day for Chris Spieler.
No doubt about it. I mean, Chris was in really rough shape, after an event that was supposed to be in his wheelhouse. However, he's a mature athlete. He has the most experience at the CrossFit Games of any athlete here, and he kept his head on his shoulders. Rory McKernan was there. He caught up with Chris. Let's see what he had to say.
Things started going bad from the start of event 1, really. Can you kind of walk me through what happened?
So I guess at the start, the run went well to the water, and then once I got to the water, once my fins on, and as I was doing that, somehow my wedding band slid right off my finger, and that was gone. So not much I could do about that. And then got my fins on, started to backpedal into the water, and the first wave hit and knocked my goggles off. So I didn't have any goggles for the swim, which was no fun. And then bike went generally fine. Although I did crash on the bike and bent the handlebars, so I had to bend those back. And then once I got to the run, I felt fine. You know, it was a tough run, but the first downhill, my quads started to lock up, and it just got progressively worse, like way worse cramping than I've ever experienced. So it was really bad. I had to sit down for a while, and then I was trying to just walking was no fun.
Absolutely heartbreaking news about him, no doubt about it. But one thing is for sure, he's not out of it, not by a long shot. There's a lot more of the competition awaiting. But it was a great morning for some other people, such as Julie Fouché. After taking second on Pendleton 1, she beat all of the women and all but 8 of the men on Pendleton 2. Fouché crossed the line 2 hours, 5 minutes, 12 seconds, doing what she does best.
I mean, what year is it right now?
I don't know.
I'm so confused because I don't know if you remember this, but that is the exact number of men that she beat last year in the beach event. I mean, it's incredible. Fouché is so good at these long monostructural workouts. When it comes to mental strength and just moving from point A to point B, Julie Fouché is quite simply one of the best in the world.
That's how she rolls.
Yeah, she's just amazing. To win Pendleton 1, Fouché had to close the 1-minute gap between herself and Ruth Anderson Horrell during the 11K run. She did close that gap, but Horrell and Christy Phillips didn't let up. The 3 raced down the final 1,000 meters, just 1,000.
Ugh, that sounds terrible.
And just 21 seconds after Fouché finished, Phillips and Horrell took second and third, and a photo finish, folks, separated by just 1 second.
Can you imagine trying to push through that last 1,000 meters after all that? Just racing somebody else would be just, ugh. And what happened to Annie Sakamoto, though, right? She was in third after Pendleton 1. Where did she go? She fell to 11th during the grueling run, and that's just one example of some of the major shifts that we saw from Pendleton 1 to Pendleton 2. Some athletes moving 20 spots or even more than that. Guys, I gotta say, I thought it was really cool that all the individual competitors, the men and the women, went together, because last year we were able to speculate and say some of the women's times beat some of the men's times, but this year we got to actually see them cross the finish line before them.
I know you absolutely loved that photo finish. It was an incredibly close race between the leaders for a 2-hour event. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk about what the hell happened to our favorites, where are they, and we'll take a look at the obstacle course.
We are TJ's Gym, and we are the fittest team on earth.
Sexiest.
3, 2, 1, go.
We are TJ's Gym, and we're the sexiest team on earth. We are losing CrossFit, and we are the fittest team on earth.
I was delayed there. Can we
We are CrossFit Fury, the fittest gym on earth. Fucked it up.
I wasn't ready.
Wait, what are we saying again? The fittest. We are CrossFit Fury, and we are the fittest team on earth. Call me Katie Hogan.
We are Tropic Thunder, and we are the fittest team on earth. For real!
We are CrossFit Ottawa, and we are the fittest affiliate on earth. 3, 2, 1, go! We are CrossFit SoCal, and we are the fittest team on earth. Vi Team Butchers Lab, og vi de stærkeste slagter I verden. Yeah!
We are Rogue and Hannah, and we are the fittest team on earth.
We are
Front Range CrossFit. We are the fittest team on earth.
Welcome back. As expected, the U.S. Marine base Camp Pendleton exacted sweat, blood, and tears from the competitors. Unexpectedly, some of the competitors that suffered the worst are some of our favorites.
Yeah, it's odd. We haven't even said names like Kristen Clever, Annie Thorsdottir, or Rich Froning at the top of these lists yet, because that's exactly what happened in the swim bike run. Kristen Clever took the worst beating out of the 3 that I just mentioned. She was 34th on Pendleton 1 and made up just 6 places for 28th on Pendleton 2. And these are similar to her finish on last year's beach event. And reports were that the regular smiley face of Kristen Clever was nowhere to be seen. Yeah. Thorisdottir and Froning, they did a little bit better. They stayed consistently in the upper third. Thorisdottir was 16th on Pendleton 1 and 14th on Pendleton 2. Froning was 17th and then made up some ground for 12th. Thorisdottir as well, though, was said to be struggling with almost like a deer in the headlights expression on her face for the entire second half of that run, which is unexpected for me with her.
Now, all these competitors, we know them dearly. They're our friends, so I don't want to say it's cool to hear all these stories of like misery and suffering, but
here we go.
But what I do mean by that is I like to know that it's that hard and that there's a competition out there and you don't really know that, oh, Annie and Froning are going to win. Like, why even watch? Like, no, not at all. It's really cool to see that level of competition. But they had a chance to make up some ground. 1 hour later, the competitors moved onto the U.S. Marine School of Infantry obstacle course. In heats of 3 to 4 competitors, they raced through the O course. Only the heat winners and the top 4 times, called wild cards, got to pass through the obstacle course again, with 3 passes through the course. CrossFit whittled away the competition down to the fastest and most consistent competitors.
Yes, and it was quite a race to finish. But it's important to point out that the competitors were physically devastated after the swim bike ride. Yeah, I can't imagine why. 2 competitors, Chris Spieler and Deb Kortner, actually had to get IVs in their arms during the break. And another, we talked about him before, Numi Katrin-Narson, returned from the hospital against doctor's orders. I mean, can you imagine? I got to race, I got to leave.
Yeah, you know a lot about not paying attention to your doctor's orders, but again, and how cool is that? I mean, that's like the heart of a champion. You're in the hospital and you're like, hey doc, speed this up. I have an obstacle course to do. You know, chop chop.
Of course.
Unbelievable, right? Also, because of the total devastation across the field, CrossFit decided to cancel the broad jump. We don't know the exact details, but most likely that event, it's not coming back into the competition.
Huh. That's okay. Well, former Marine Patrick Burke, you guys mentioned him yesterday, was a favorite to win the obstacle course because he held an unofficial record on the course. And I heard that the Marines there watching absolutely rallied around him and were cheering like crazy from the sidelines for Patrick Burke as he advanced all the way to the final round. There, facing Spencer Hendel, Kenneth Leverich, and Rich Froning, Burke stumbled a little bit early on, which you couldn't do in this obstacle course, and the race went to Spencer Hendel, which I gotta say I'm a little bit surprised to hear Spencer Hendel winning the obstacle course.
I know, right? Such a big dude, but what you said previously, I bet that the Marines loved Pat Burke. Former Marine, he looks like a poster child for the Marine Corps, right? And he has USMC tattooed across his chest. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, I'm sure it was amazing atmosphere, and Spencer Hendel did a great job winning that race, moving himself up the leaderboard on the women's side of things. Things started out a little rough for the champ, Annie Thorisdottir. She lost her heat to Jessa Lemoyne by just over a second. However, her time was good enough to qualify for the next round as the wild card. Then facing Angie Pye, Shayna Alverson, and Candice Ruiz, Thorisdottir won her heat by a huge margin. She crossed the line in 47 seconds, roughly 4 seconds ahead of the next best woman in Pye. In the final round, Annie Thorisdottir, Kristen Clever, there she is.
Yeah,
we thought she'd do well on this obstacle course. Taliana Fortunato and Jamie Gold went head-to-head. Gold was the favorite to win after her last heat that was in 44 seconds. That is amazing. But in this final round, Gold didn't have it in her. She slowed down. Thorisdottir, Clever, and Fortunato sped up. Fortunato and Clever set a blistering 43-second time through the course. Fortunato came out the winner by just a fraction of a second. Amazing, amazing times.
I mean, these times, right? I mean, apparently it takes the average Marine, from what I read on the internet, about 1:30 to get through the course. I'm sure some are plenty faster than that, some are slower. And I even heard some former Marines say, I've been there, I've done that. Like I've seen people do the course in around a minute that practice it. Maybe some CrossFitters will be around 55 seconds. But no, we're seeing the guys in the 30s and the ladies in the 40s. They are crushing this thing.
And we're talking about no practice and what they had gone through earlier in the day. I can't even wrap my head around that.
Yeah, after some of the stories we heard of the athletes just being devastated and barely being able to walk, and then, a couple minutes later, an hour later, here they are lining up, ready to go, like nothing even happened during the morning event.
And I gotta say, Spiel won his heat. Gotta throw that out there.
And there's plenty more ahead, right? This is just day one, and we didn't even know it was going to be day one. Folks, the games have officially begun with an incredible day of competition. Earlier today, a helicopter flew footage to our crew at the Home Depot Center. You will get the highlight video tonight and much more to see in the future. Please, thank you to the United States Marine Corps for letting a bunch of crazy CrossFitters onto your base to have a good time. Tomorrow, as far as we know for the athletes, a rest day, but we'll see. Individual competition should start again on Friday. From the desk, we will see you all tomorrow.